Welcome to Behind the Dub, the podcast series talking to voice actors about their experiences in the industry, as well as the shows they work on. Just before we start, I'd like to ask that if you like what you hear, please consider liking, subscribing, following, or commenting. This all means a lot to me, and it can help make more episodes happen in the future.
Hi, I'm Kieran Regan. I'm a voice actor, narrator, once graphic designer, once photographer, turned actor in college. I am living out in California, and I like long walks on the beach.
You like long walks on the beach? Who doesn't like long walks on the beach?
Not gonna lie, I lived in Kansas for like 6 years. I got to California. The first thing I did was took a long walk on the beach.
Oh, wow. Well,
Yeah.
I am so glad that you've decided to have a little chat with me, Kieran, because you are the lead Rio in Spirit Chronicles, which I believe is your first anime as well. So congrats on getting a lead on your first anime.
Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Thank you, I appreciate it.
And so, did you have you been pursuing this for a while, or was it just something that just happened to you?
I've been pursuing voice acting for a while, and to say that I got it out of like the middle of nowhere, I got Rio out of like, oh, they just emailed me and I didn't even have to audition because I didn't even work for it, is a complete lie.
Yeah.
No, I worked really hard to get that role in particular. Um, I've been doing voice acting from home since the start of COVID. And when I say that, it's like I was balancing a 40-hour-a-week job working at a packaging factory and doing voiceover. And, I grew up on anime. I grew up on cartoons.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't watch a lot of it because I didn't know that I could do it. Uh, but now that I know I can do it and I can appreciate the craft, I watch a lot of dubs. Um, but basically, uh, that role came about me just putting in the work every day, reaching out to people, and making sure that my demos were top notch so that I could have that opportunity to even audition for that show. You know what I mean?
Yes. I will say your demos are fantastic. I did listen to them the other day. They're wonderful. They're good, so
Thank
good.
you. I
Um,
appreciate that. They were made by my friend Alex Walker Smith, one of my first friends in LA. I moved like 5 months ago to LA, and he was one of those people that, like, I reached out to him November in 2019, and
yeah.
I was like, "Hey, I'm just getting started doing voiceover. Could you make some demos for me?" And he's like, "Yes, but only for you." So I'm like, "Thank you, Alex." Dude
Oh,
is
yes.
dude is an absolute earworm. He can just make your voice sound beautiful. Wrote, directed, sound designed, mixed. It was Love that man.
So you've kind of done a bit of everything. I've got your resume up here, and
Mhm.
you've got a couple of video games, audio dramas, commercials, audiobooks. Yeah, that it's pretty good for only having started essentially 2 years ago. And
Mhm.
you've got quite a bit under your belt. So is it like what most of the voice actors I've talked to have said? It's mostly you're auditioning every waking hour of every waking day.
Yes, in a sense, yes. So before I did voiceover, I did theater, and a theater professor once told me, especially for on camera, when you step outside, you're auditioning because you are putting in a
Of course,
public
yeah.
self to the public space, and you don't know if someone like if you are becoming notorious in some sense, or you are getting some press or sort all that stuff, you want to be presentable and you want to be, looked up to. And so for voiceover, I'm not auditioning technically every day,
Hmm.
um, in the sense of like every waking hour of every day, but I am thinking about it near constantly. When I watch a show, I think about how they did the performance. When I talk to my friends, if someone says something fun, I'm like, oh, I'll keep that. My little repertoire, my little
Ah,
Rolodex.
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So And then I don't really yeah, I do a lot of different genres of voiceover because Good lord, I need to make rent. So,
Because
you
one
know
of
what I
the
mean?
questions I like asking as well, because you've been cast as Rio, he's a hero, but
Mhm,
I've talked to someone Blythe Melin, he's a
mhm,
villain or a baddie, and so do
yeah.
you want to be always the hero or do you like being the villain?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I like being I mean, I loved playing Rio in Spirit Chronicles because being that, like, hero, it's kind of fulfilling a childhood dream of mine.
Yes,
You
that's what
know what
I
I
forget.
mean?
Hmm.
Um, being a villain is incredibly fun.
See, I've heard that
Especially if
too.
you yeah, especially if you get a fun villain. You can get villains that are just the absolute scum of the earth, and it's a real test on your emotional, awareness as, an actor to be able to handle a villain like that with grace, dignity, and, um, make sure that it comes across as actually villainous and not, like, campy or anything like that. I had to play, um I think to answer your question, though, I would rather play the anti-hero.
Ah,
Not necessarily the
good
hero,
answer. Yeah,
not necessarily the villain. I like the anti-hero, the, Daredevil, the yeah,
the Deadpool
yeah,
sort of thing.
Deadpool. Deadpool would be fantastic. I love Deadpool. He's cool.
I can definitely picture you voicing Deadpool. I know Ryan
Yeah,
Reynolds is
thanks, man.
great, but I can definitely hear you. I can hear you do it because was who else is Nolan North? He's does
Nolan
Deadpool
North.
as well. Yeah,
Yeah. If they ever have Deadpool a teenager, hit me up.
yeah, exactly. So
Deadpool teenager edition.
Spirit Chronicles is your first anime, and from what I've just gathered from your resume and all, you've mostly done, I'm guessing, script work in a with just read the script. How was it for you doing it in what I believe is the usual anime way of the three beeps and off you go? How was that for yourself?
Oh, it was like diving headfirst into a 10-foot pool and you don't know how to swim.
Oh,
Um, it was hard at first. Now, thankfully, I had a very patient director. Mike Schneider is absolutely incredible. If anyone gets the chance to work with him, I highly recommend it. He's incredibly kind and giving. Now, the first 3 beeps into the sound, into what you need to make, it's you know when you have something you want to say and you wish you could say it then? You know what I mean? It's like,
hmm
uh, you know, "Okay, I'll say it right now," right? But when you have to wait for the 3 beeps, it's like, "Beep, beep, beep." Okay, so you have to hold on to that idea, or that emotion for an extended period of time, or just not think about it until the 4th phantom beep comes up, and you're like, "Oh, now I speak." You know what I mean?
It a bit like
Thankfully
in musical
yeah.
theatre, you kind of got that you've got that count in your head. So
You got the
5,
count
6,
in your head,
yeah.
exactly. But the wonderful thing about, modern voiceover and modern dubbing specifically, or ADR, is the track keeps rolling, right? So if you screw up, or if you say it in a weird cadence, or, because you are cold reading, essentially, um, you can always follow it with a B take. You know what I mean?
Yes,
So you
yes.
can do take 1, take 2 in the same line, and because, a lot of these lines aren't super complex, they aren't paragraphs of text.
No.
Now, I did have a few paragraphs, they are in there, but I didn't a lot of these lines are like, "Oh, good morning, how are you?" You know what I mean? And it's not hard to remember that cadence, that pacing, and that speed. So that's why you take the opportunity to take a take 2 if your director's okay with it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because it's
Um,
digital, they can always just mix and mash it.
yeah, they just press Control Z, right off we go.
Mhm. I'm an
uh,
engineer's nightmare. Martin was my engineer, and I feel like I made his life, like, 10 times harder. He said I
oh.
didn't, but I still feel bad. I'm like, "Dang it, I'm not perfect for you, Martin."
But I forget how many episodes are in Spirit Chronicles. Is it 12? Is it the usual run of
Yeah,
12 at the minute?
12. Usual
How
12.
many sessions roughly was that for you then? How many sessions did you have to do?
I think I had to do around one session an episode. I
Okay.
think we ended at 11. And yeah, so
I was gonna say you weren't really in the first episode, not really. I don't know who's doing
no,
the young Rio. Well,
that's
I say
Fion.
Rio, but yeah.
That's he's this 12-year-old boy out of New York named Fion. He's
Wow.
incredible. He sounds like me when I was 12. How weird is that?
Because I wasn't too sure if it was you doing a really good young voice or they got someone else, and it was just like that's weird. But yeah, it's really going. Now we've got a bit more, shall we say, development in Spirit Chronicles, but
Mhm,
it's only episode 2 out of the of time of me recording this, and
mhm.
so we've got another episode next week. I know you're not got any spoilers, but what did you think of the series as a whole? Is it did you enjoy it? Do you normally watch isekai? That's the genre of Spirit
It's an
Chronicles.
isekai.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was 15, I did. I don't normally watch it nowadays.
Hmm.
Um, because nowadays I'm trying to catch up on the classics, the ones that I haven't seen yet. For instance, I'm watching Cowboy Bebop right now.
Good man.
Um, yeah, right. I have the soundtrack playing in my head.
Oh, so good.
Um, so with Spirit Chronicles, it's not something that I would generally watch
Mm.
right now, but it's this kind of experience where I now see and have lived the work that goes into shows like this
Yeah,
to
because you've had it
be
from a newer
like
perspective. Yes.
I've had it from a new perspective. And so now I think I can find myself enjoying shows like this, especially from a dub perspective, because I'm like, oh, how did they tackle that problem? What's going on
Mm.
there? You know? Oh man, weren't those flaps weird? We had a lot of weird flaps in this show. A lot of
Um,
times Rio would just end with his mouth open, like, hi, you know? And you're just like, so I go, hi,
until
until
he
he
shuts
closes his
up.
mouth, you know? But 15-year-old me would have loved watching this show and loved watching the dub. So yeah.
Did you have anything with weird names or pronunciations? Because you'll get a name and you're like, what? What?
Yes. Yes. Yes, I did. Um,
Especially in a fantasy
I
setting, it must happen so often. Stephen Kelly mentioned it. He
mean,
had was it Phrasvelger or whatever it was, and apparently when they were doing the session, they were like, "What? How do you say that?" They
yep.
consulted Google.
I think we had one of those every other session.
Oh no!
Um, where we didn't, because as the lead, I'm in the recording booth the most out of
Yes.
anybody, right? And oftentimes I'm paving the way for other, like, because we don't all record in one session at one time seamlessly and perfect. No, it's one voice actor at one time, and then it's the next voice actor at another time. And so basically, I'm paving the way to find these words, right?
Yeah.
There's Celia, not Celia. There's anyway, just names that you're like, how do I pronounce
Not
this?
common names.
It's
Yeah.
it's fantasy, so it could be pronounced weirdly, you know what I mean? Or it could be pronounced more ephemeral, beautiful, like whoa, you know. Like Celia versus Celia, like what's the
Yeah.
difference between that? And so um the hardest thing that I had to figure out how to pronounce though is at the very end. It's in the last episode. It's not really any spoilers, but it's just some beast language, beast talk. Like,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not saying because in the original sub, um, they just speak Japanese and then play it backwards, and
Oh.
that's how
Oh.
they
Okay.
get
Yeah.
it. But we made our own language off of how that
Ooh.
sounded. Yeah, that was really hard to
Oh,
to
that's
do
going to
because
be
it's like
interesting
words
to
I'm
hear.
yeah, yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
You were mentioning having you're watching sort of more the classic animes. You mentioned Cowboy Bebop, which is fantastic dub, especially with Steve Bloom as Spike Spiegel. What other
Mhm.
series are you watching or have watched then?
Well, recently, uh, are we just talking straight anime or just anything in
It
general?
could be sort of anything, but I thought you were sort of talking about anime with dubbed
Mhm.
that you're watching now.
Well,
Or just what you're
I
watching now.
recently watched Samurai Champloo.
Okay.
Um,
I've heard good things
uh,
about it. I've not seen it, but yeah.
you should. The soundtrack, it's amazing. The dub's really great. It's like just as cool as Cowboy Bebop.
Ooh.
Uh, yeah, it's awesome. I'm trying to think what other shows I've been watching Arcane.
Okay, okay, cool.
Arcane is amazing and beautiful, and it's where I think it's where voiceover is going in the future. I think that's how it's going to sound. Everything should sound as beautiful
Yeah.
as that. What other shows have I been watching? I'm trying to think.
Because I know myself and a bunch of friends were currently re-going through Ghost in the Shell standalone complex.
I have
Which,
not seen Ghost in the Shell. That's
oh,
I know. I know. I
oh.
know. Beat me up, all right?
Oh, I won't do that,
I've
but no, it's a good series. That's so
I
good.
am I am going to be watching that at some point when I finish Cowboy Bebop. That's one of the next things on my list. I have a list
Yeah,
of things
but
that I want to go through.
um,
Well, the thing is
go
I didn't grow up. Like I grew up on like cartoons and anime, yeah, but that's like cartoons and anime on the weekends for 2 hours a day.
yeah,
You know what
yeah,
I
I know that.
mean?
Yeah.
I didn't my parents didn't allow me to really watch a whole lot of TV or play a whole lot of video games. Honestly, I did a lot of sports in high school, like, that was
Oh, you're a
my
jock.
thing.
Oh.
I wish I wasn't, but it's true. I've played a total of, like, 10 different sports, so, yeah.
No, I hated sports, me. Well, yeah, as you can tell, but yeah, yeah, I never liked
I mean,
sports.
I it's, um, not s I mean, I wish I could have done, like, acting and theater in high
Yeah.
school. You know, but I wasn't really comfortable with it. And so I had to do it more pursue it in college when I am my own person and can pursue my own craft and, you know, do things that were interesting to me when I was younger. And lo and behold, I have a place in this world of voice acting,
Which is
so,
still so
yeah.
cool. For myself,
Yeah.
I would love to be in a sort of position that you are, where you've just got a lead role, and I believe they have announced a season two as well. When I was looking up
Yes.
information on the series, I believe they had just announced a season two as well.
Mhm.
And I think I think that's just awesome. I'd love to be in like a video game, or something like Final Fantasy, or I've been watching Digimon Ghost Game recently. I'd love to be something like that.
Right.
Be still my beating heart, and here you are, sort of
Right.
living the dream, so to speak, which I think is just awesome. And
Yeah, yeah, that is something that has been said to me on more than one occasion ever since announcing this role, was I am doing what people are dreaming they could do, and, you know, for me, I'd rather just think of it as like, this is an amazing experience.
yeah,
I am so happy I got the chance to be able to do it and meet the awesome people behind the scenes and, sort of I'm glad because it's getting my name out there in a sense, and fingers crossed that this is not where it stops, that it continues more
well,
into the
I
future.
certainly hope not. From what I've heard so far, as I say, I really hope you get more and more roles, in the
Thanks.
future. I think that you've definitely got the right voice for it. And I'm not
Thank you.
trying to inflate one's ego. It's just like, no, honestly, I think you've really got a good voice for it. You've definitely got the right,
I
the
appreciate
right stuff, shall we say?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I was just sort of glancing over your resume again. This is something I was joking about with Blythe, because I only recorded
Mhm.
it the other day, and I love how you got on your skills. I've noticed you got all your sports down there. Your lacrosse, your bowling, basketball, football, and track and field. So yeah,
Mhm.
jock.
Mhm. Jock.
And you've
Well, I
got
played all those sports and, like, for on camera, which is what I wanted to do before COVID. having that on your resume is kind of important because, you know, if they're casting a sports show that deals with bowling,
True, yeah.
it's good for them to know that I have taken bowling classes and
um,
can, in fact, bowl a strike 3 out of 10 times.
I guess that also applies to stick shift driver.
Yes, yes. So I have a Honda 2011 CRZ. It's this tiny coupe. I swear it was like a manufacturing accident. There's only 20,000 of them in the world.
Oh,
But I got it because it was under $10,000 to buy. It's
no,
a
that
weird car and it's manual. So if someone tries to steal my car,
they won't be
they have
able
no
to.
idea what to do. They have no idea what to do. But the problem was is I didn't know how to drive it off the lot.
Oh
So
no!
I bought the car, but I couldn't drive it off the lot. So I had to call my stepdad, who's, you know, a car guy, and he had to drive it down, and he taught me how to drive manual, knowing that I'm 19, I bought my first car, like
No, when you're there, you just
yeah,
grinding all the
yeah.
gears through.
That was like my first month. I made the mistake. I was living
Oh,
in Chicago at the time.
okay,
And
okay.
I made them yeah, I was military family, so but I lived mainly in Southern California for the most part of my
Yeah.
life. Military family happened once I moved to college. They started moving everywhere, um, which is not usually how it's done. But I was in Chicago at the time, and I made the mistake of I had just learned how to drive a stick shift, and my friend Mina had flown in, and I was like, "All right, I'm gonna go pick you up from Chicago O'Hare Monday at 7 in the morning in a
No,
stick shift," and
in
it's
a
only
stick
been a
shift.
week since I've started driving.
Oh no.
I stalled the car 4 times in the airport lobby or whatever it is, the airport, like, loading zone.
I've been to a house. I know the bit you're talking about. It's just like, oh
Uh-huh.
no.
Mhm, 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 mhm.
um, and
Yeah.
I was just looking at your dialects. We were talking about. I was talking about this with Live
Mhm.
about, and I'm from a little town called Wigan, and it's near Manchester. You've got Manchester on here, so I would love to
I do.
hear your Mancunian. Really?
I'm gonna be completely honest. I booked 1 role as a Mancunian accent. I completely bombed it.
Oh no.
So it's been about 2 years since I've attempted, so
Ah.
I'm not even gonna I'm gonna save myself the embarrassment and just respectfully decline. Ask me to do a Russian, ask me to do an Australian, ask me to do just a general RP British or a Northern even,
Just Northern
the,
English.
Northern sort of, yeah. Um,
That's good. That's
you know
good. Say
Thank
it's
you.
all right,
Ask me
mate.
to do any of those, but you literally found my weak spot.
Because yeah, because
I
my
need to
my
upgrade
dialect
that.
is a bit weird because I'll try to
Mhm.
make this good. I was born deaf. I couldn't hear anything for many years, and through the magic of Phil Collins. Because long story, but basically, I used to copy my dad. I used to sit because he used to listen with music headphones on. I used to copy my dad, and the music we were playing. And then one day, my mum noticed that my expression had changed, and I was responding to sound. And we'd always joke that Phil Collins gave me back my hearing, but
Do you know what it
I don't
was?
know. It's just something that I've been told like since I was young. And
Ah,
but basically, I was at the age where you should have already had like the mama dada sort of phase, and so I had to
God.
go to speech therapy, and so I
Mm,
learned the Queen's English. So I've not quite got 100% a Northern Manchester Wigan, not even a Wigan
yeah.
accent really.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I've been up and down the UK. I've moved places, so my accent is
Yeah.
weird. So
Yeah.
don't feel bad. Don't feel bad.
You've got an idiolect is what we call that.
Idiolect.
An
Ah, okay.
idiolect. And I think that's what it's called. Correct me if I'm wrong, but an idiolect is a person who speaks um like themselves. Think of like Christopher Walken.
Yes, and
Um,
you're bang on. I just double checked. Idiolect is an individual's unique use of language, including
yeah,
speech. So yeah, you're
cool, yeah.
bang on. So it's like
So you'd be
the walking way, or even Shatner, you
mhm.
could say.
Even Shatner.
But
Yeah. Sean
love your
Connery.
eye roll then.
Shatner.
uh, but so when you're doing different dialects, do you have any tricks to sort of convince yourself to do the accent, or do you have to sort of say something else first before you can start speaking in the accent?
So it depends on the accent. It depends on how much I've worked on it and how much I need to warm it up, right?
Yeah.
Because all accents of mine, I can do an accent if you give me 2 weeks to learn it,
Mm.
right? There's this great website called IDEA, so it's the International Dialects of English Archive, and basically this group of people out of Lawrence, Kansas, which is where I went to college, um, they sample a bunch of people from around the world that speak English, and have them read the same script and then a little blurb about themselves, and then
Yeah.
put that online. And so give me 2 weeks, and I can learn an accent through using that and, news article or in news interviews from towns or whatever.
Mm.
But accents that I know now that I need to call up on, like, the snap of a finger, um, so, uh, oftentimes, like, say, for a Scottish, it would be "Alright," in a minute, you know? Um, or if it's Russian, I have to say, "Now I'm speaking Russian," because if
Oh wow.
it's, yeah.
Yeah.
Or, Australian's like, "Sort of up here, mate. Like, how you doing?" Right? This is more of a New Zealander than Australian because it's more I than E. Um, it's more like Korg in The Avengers. Um,
Oh yeah, yeah. I know what you mean now.
yeah. And so I do have my little tricks, my little phrases, my little words to get me in the accent. And it's one thing to have learned an accent, it's another thing to have mastered it. So you hear how all of my little, like, dialects or whatever are kind of characters in and of themselves,
Yes.
right? Having mastered a dialect is being able to speak in that dialect and produce an innumerable amount of characters. I would look to people like JB Blanc, um, or JB Blank, I don't know how you pronounce his last name.
I think it's
Um,
Blanc. Yeah.
Blanc. He is the best accent voice actor in the world, in my opinion. Dude he can just whatever accent you need, he got it. And he can do whatever character you need in that accent. He's incredible. He's a savant. It's awesome.
Savant. I love that word. It's
Mhm.
so. Would you say that being able to produce a range of characters in different dialects is key to being a successful voice actor?
I'll say it certainly helps. There are some people who get by on just their voice, and that's fine. Um, but for me, honestly, I haven't gotten by on just my voice. Like, I started doing audiobooks, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I got cast in audiobooks first, and that was what allowed me to pay my rent, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, being able to do different accents, different, like, levels of speaking, like, I can go lower, I can go higher, I can do a female voice, I can narrate in a female point of view. You know what I mean? Because if
Yeah.
you put it up here, you're sort of, like, kind of breathy, kind of airy, and, if you listen to this for long enough, you sort of forget the gender of the masculine behind my voice, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Especially
and
for an
so
audiobook. Yeah.
especially for an audiobook, right? So it might not, but the other thing is, though, and this is the catch 22, it's you have to do it and it has to sound good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
You
can't just put
can't
on a
just
silly voice.
do
Yeah.
it. You can't just do something like this because it's deeper and masculine, right? It's gotta sound good, and that didn't sound good, you know? So when Blythe's characters come up, you know how he has that golden, rich tone.
Oh yes.
I know, hot damn, I'm not gonna go for that, or if I am, I'm doing it out of practice, because maybe one day I can reach that, but right now, based off of my physical construct of my vocal cords, the makeup of it, I can't, um, produce that sound safely or consistently. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you are more sort of comfortable in your normal octaves than you are in lower ranges.
Yes. So that being said, I have voiced a few lower characters before. Jacob Harris in Splinter City is one of them. He's the sort of northern guy. He's from Northern England and all that stuff. He's a little mumbler. Um, and so I he's one of them. And then a lot of like the audiobooks, like the male lead is like this 6'4" kind of swaggering kind of guy. So even if I don't have like the deepest voice, I have to embody that, right? And so like I can drop my voice a little bit, right? And it sounds, maybe a little bit forced, but it's doable. And
Sounds really
then,
good to me.
you know, well, thank you. I appreciate it. One of these days I'm going to book a character in an anime, a villain, if you will,
A villain.
with that voice.
Have you done any sort of I forget what the proper term is, but have you done any bestial voices? Have you had to do any sort of monster characters or anything like that? Because I know sometimes they'll get if you're in a session, sometimes they might go, "Oh, could you just do some growling for this?" Have you ever done anything of that yet?
Yes, I have done some stuff of that caliber, quantity, whatever uh, but it's not really monsters, like, all that stuff. I don't wanna destroy my vocal cords. But it's more like the small little, like those kinds of things, or like little spiders,
Yeah.
right? Um, I practice them in my D&D games
Oh,
when I
you play a lot
can.
of D&D.
Yeah, that's how I got started into doing voiceover, honestly. Mm.
Another one of my favorite questions to ask, because this usually has a very 50-50 answer, is do you sing?
Um, Not well.
See, that's it, because usually it goes, yes, certainly, of course I can, and oh god, please don't ask. Yeah, it's usually one of those
Uh-huh,
two.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yeah. No, I can if yeah, I don't sing professionally. I wouldn't call myself a singer.
Couple of
I
beers in a
have
karaoke bar.
Yeah, good lord, I've tried. But it's taken me like 6 years to actually get a sense of rhythm.
Oh
And
wow.
even still, that's kinda rough. Um, and then while I'm good, once I start thinking about it, once I start thinking about the notes that I'm trying to hit, I'm a goner. Screwed.
It just
Goodbye.
all falls apart. That's it.
It's just, and there's the walls, and they are crumbling down, yes.
Oh goodness me! It's really interesting to hear from a relatively new perspective, because in other episodes of my show I have talked to Ben Diskin, and he's been doing this like over 30
Ages.
years, and it's just like, oh
Yeah.
my god, I was in what we call primary school. I don't know how you'd call it in the States, but
Elementary.
basically elementary, thank you. I was in elementary school, and he was voice acting, and it's just like, oh my god, what the, it's so
He's been doing
strange.
it since he was, like, what, 8?
Yes, something like
Yeah.
that. It's just, oh,
Like, he
it's
was, what,
unreal.
number 1 and number,
Number one and number
2?
two in Kids
Or
Next
number
Door.
1 and number 2 in Kids Next Door? I grew up on Kids Next Door.
Hey
So
Arnold, and he was Eugene in Hey
yep,
Arnold, and it's just like,
yep.
what? And
You're like,
of course he's
holy cow.
he's I know him better off for doing Shoutmon and Jack and Beastars and that, but I
Mhm.
said for someone that you've been in it for only say a couple of years now, and you've got a lead, and I'm guessing you've got quite a few other projects that you can't talk about.
Yep.
That
I am in NDA hell right now.
oh, and how is it for you having to keep secrets like that? Because there must be one or two in there. You're like, I want to tell people I want to sing this to the world, and you can't. And you're like, is it difficult for you,
Hmm.
or
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that the one thing that I do is, like, I'll work a gig, and then, um, I set a timer in my, like, calendar to send an email to
okay?
whoever I need to send to, but until that moment, I forget about it. I just try and forget about it, so that way I don't feel like I need to talk about it. Um because, I don't wanna get lost in the voice acting sauce. Do you know what I mean? Which is very real.
Yeah.
Like, it is thick and it holds you down. I don't know if you've heard of the, uh what is it? There was, like, in, like, the mid-1900s, molasses flooded a town,
Oh,
and
yes, I did hear about that. Yeah.
you know what I'm talking about? The molasses is the voice acting. And you can either, get lost in it or, run away and stay away from it and, come back when you need to. It's just yeah. Hopefully that makes sense. It makes sense in my
It does. It
brain.
does make sense. And
Okay.
I was looking down again on your resume. You've got a lot of education listed here, and there's quite a few
Mhm.
names that jump out at me. You've got J. Michael Tatum. He's one of my favorite voice actors. You've also got
Oh, yeah.
uh, Griffin Puatu.
Yeah, Griffin.
It's just like, oh wow, Griffin's someone again I'll love to bend his ear because he's Lewis in Beastars.
Mhm.
And it's just you've also got Crispin Freeman. Me and Blythe talked about Crispin Freeman because holy crap, he's done so much. Would you
Mhm.
recommend any of these sort of courses to people who are looking to starting out in voice acting?
Yeah, I would. So for me, I'm always you can do as much as you can on your own, and you can discover a whole lot, but sometimes it might take ages to figure out what you really need to work on. And that is very true for me. For me, I do well in a class setting and when I'm learning and hearing what other people are doing. Because, in voiceover, you're submitting an audition and it's just you. You're submitting into the void. You're not hearing anybody else in the audition room. You're not hearing anybody else anywhere. And
Yeah.
so just the experience of sitting in a room and hearing how other people sound, what choices they make, what sounds good, and why is so important. So the other thing, this is for starting voice actors. Um, if I were to recommend a voice acting class, the first one that I took was Crispin Freeman. Um, now, I had also done a lot of experimenting before I took that class, so I didn't just hop in cold and flop
No.
on the deck like a fish. You know what I mean? I had been voice acting, on, like, internet forums, casting call club, Twitter. I'd been doing that for 3 years and just hadn't booked anything. No, I booked 2 things, never mind. Uh,
But not a lot.
but
Yeah.
not a lot, right? I wanted to know, like, what I could improve on. Took that class. Literally, he only had 10 minutes for me, but I learned so much in those 10 minutes
Yeah.
that, I came out and just changed the way I thought about voiceover. I didn't know before that, I didn't know you could move. I thought you had to be perfectly still like this the entire time. So you can imagine how all of my reads sounded,
Ah. Yeah, because
right?
you're very static on the mic. Yeah. Uh,
You're very static on the mic, but what if your character's running? "I'm running, I'm going very fast. This is great." Like,
yeah.
it's n but having that, like, "I'm running, I'm going very fast, this is great," you know? Having that physical movement in there was so important to learn, and then yeah, Crispin Freeman's class, I would suggest. Anything with J. Michael Tatum, he's fantastic. Uh, anything with, um, Joel McDonald. Joel McDonald is also one of those teachers. I think they both run through a program called, like, That's So VO, uh,
Oh yeah, it
and they're
says
both
here that's
fan
OVO. Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Because
Yeah.
because one of the things I'm kind of hoping with my series here is I'm hoping that somebody out there will listen to this and take on the advice from people like yourself who are in the industry, and they can get themselves into a role and such. There's a
Mhm,
gentleman who I did a wonderful gentleman called Brian Olson. He's not done any anime or anything like that, but he's the lead role in a game called Brock the Investigator, and
mhm,
he told me the other day that he's watched every single episode of this show and he's learned new things, even though he's been doing it for a while. He's been done narration, corporate, and all that. Even just watching
mhm.
my little show, he's learned something new, and that's like I can't express. That's like holy crap, you know. So to hear something,
Yeah.
some experience tips from yourself, you know,
Yeah.
it's useful to me. But I just hope someone out there can can get it and do it and achieve great things. Because that's one thing. If I can get one person to thank me for the career because of this, I'll be you know.
Well, that's like, I mean, that's not to get all preachy here, but like that's why we do it, right? We do stuff like this because it is cool. It is fantastic. This is our, hyperfixation, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, right. But it's also because going back to when I was a teenager and what inspired me to, like worlds could I escape in World of Warcraft. That like, once you know, and so you hope that someone hears your words and, makes a change, right? Or starts to do something they actually want to do. For me, that was listening to Voice Acting Mastery. That was listening to Critical Role, the
Oh, Critical
interviews
Role, yeah.
specifically in Critical Role, um, because all of those individuals are very, very accomplished voice actors.
Oh God,
And
yeah, yeah.
the interviews that Brian does, uh are just so because it's a friend to a friend, and they're so down to earth, and they're amazing stories of people who've been in the industry for 20 years. And the one thing you realize is nobody starts off easy.
No, it's
Nobody
never
starts
easy.
off with it, right? And so when you're down in the dumps and you're like, damn, nothing's working out. I've been auditioning for 5 months and I've only booked 2 roles that are both unpaid. Um, and I don't think there's not a place for my voice to fit. And then you realize that, you know, these people auditioned for 4 years and didn't book a role. You know what I mean? It puts things into perspective that each person's story is different, but the through line is nobody has it easy when they begin.
And that's why I love. That's why I love doing this, because I just hear so many different stories, and they're all different, but they're also all the same.
Yeah,
And you
right.
to hear about, oh yeah, audition, audition, audition. I just hear nothing back. And because how do you personally sort of cope when you've sent off, say, like 20, 30, 40 auditions and you hear nothing? And you're going, that's a couple hours of my life gone. How do you sort of manage to sort of push through that? Do you just stiff her upper lip, I've got this, and push through? Because it must be really hard some days.
Yeah. Well, I'm some days trying to do an audition is like trying to pull a tooth, right? You just don't want to do it. You haven't heard anything in ages. But then in the end, you look at your emails and you see, "Oh, this is interesting. I know this. I know this brand. I know this game. I know this anime,
Mm.
or I know this director." And you look at the script and you're like, "Oh, the script is interesting. Oh, I could probably do something with that. I don't want to, but you know, it's it's more fun to do something and have nothing heard back than to not do anything at all."
Yeah, I could not put it better myself, because um I've sent out emails to a few voice actors and I've heard nothing back. Now understand,
Mhm.
I'm not singling anyone out. Everyone's busy.
Mhm.
I'm not vindictive, but sometimes it makes me go, oh, is it really worth me continuing this? And then I get, instances and chances like with yourself and Blythe, and where you reply and go, yeah, sure, let's do this, and it makes me happy. So in a way, it's like I'm auditioning to you. In a way, it's
In a way,
weird.
right? Right. Well, like with these, when you do like 40 auditions and you don't hear back,
Mm.
look at voice acting stats. There was a whole thing that put things into perspective for me. People that are auditioning every day, and I mean, we're talking about, I can't remember his name. The voice of the new Sonic. Um,
Oh, blimey!
I can't.
I don't
Roger
know
Craig
it.
Smith.
That's it. Thank you.
Roger Craig Smith. He said he took all of his 6,000 auditions that he did over his life. and then calculated the ones that he booked and the ones that he didn't. And the ones that he booked, it was like 2 out of every 100.
Insane.
You know
That
what I
is
mean?
really insane.
And
Yeah.
that's nuts. It's insane, right? And then you imagine you're not Roger Craig Smith yet, right?
Mm,
And Roger Craig Smith is incredible. That dude has a whole arsenal of characters just like right out of his
yeah.
brain. You're not even Roger Craig Smith yet. So why do you think you can assume that, and I'm talking to my younger self, right?
Hmm.
But why do you think you can assume that you can book 5 out of every 10 auditions? You know?
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
you can't. You're gonna get hit with a slap in the face, get humble beat with a humble stick, and then you're gonna pick yourself up and continue doing it because in the end, you do it because the work is fun. You do it because you love it. You do it
You
because
do.
you're inspired by it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And
So,
see that's
yeah.
just good advice. And usually the way I sort of see it is, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no, or I just don't hear anything. But
Mhm.
then you might get a yes, and you never know. That yes could lead
Well,
to whole new
the worst
possibilities.
the worst that could happen is, I mean, now I take your opportunities wisely.
Mm,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Sometimes you might get an opportunity in the mailbox that you don't want to do, right?
Hmm.
But if there's an opportunity and you know you want to do it, but you don't do it because you're feeling tired or you're feeling lazy or you're feeling exhausted, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Yeah, you can miss out on that opportunity, but it's more fun, and this is how I view it, but it's more fun to be tired and do it than to be tired and not do it because then I'll get sad because I didn't do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. That
Okay.
makes absolute
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Time is moving on, unfortunately, and
Mm,
I'd have to say, I really love your perspective on all this.
thank you.
You've got a real sense of, you could be a motivational speaker. You could easily help push this to you could do a better job than I can in this show. I'll say that.
Well, that's very high praise, but I deny it, so thank
You
you.
did. Why did you deny? I just said it's true, and
I
um,
appreciate
and again, I just think it's amazing that you only started essentially since the start of COVID, and you've got a lead
it. Yeah.
role, and you've got other
Roll
roles. It's
Yeah.
just, I think that's just so amazing, and I really do hope that you get so much more roles in the future. And I just want to keep hearing your voice again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, like, I think, you know, in the end, like, I'll go back to one of my first paying gigs was the audiobook, right? Before that, I hadn't really booked a lot. I booked um a lead in a pilot, which was fun.
Hmm.
Um And then other than that, this was like my first paid gig, and I had just lost my job, right? I had just lost my job at a packaging factory where I was working 40 hours a week, but I was a seasonal worker technically, and so when the work wasn't flowing, they'd just fire me and then rehire me,
Yeah.
right? And so I just lost my job. I had nothing else to do, and I had never done an audiobook before. But this one looked interesting. I vibed with the author, I vibed with the character, and I just said, "Sure, screw it." It's something I've never done before, but it's more fun to do this than to sit on my butt and do nothing. And I mean, that audiobook paid for my rent, which allowed for an ease of mind for the next month. And then if I'm working on this audiobook over the month, I can work on other things. And I booked a few other things, you know. And so, I'm saying this to the people out there because this is something I want to say. But if you're going through it and you're going through like a 40-hour work week or you're going through school and trying to do voiceover, it's going to come like a pour of honey or molasses, or we're going back to that, right? It's going to be slow and it's going to be long and it's going to be hard because in the end, this degree, this field benefits people who put in the work daily, who put in the work every day, not every hour because that's unsafe for your mental health, but it benefits people who are in it, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to like, there's people who can balance a 40-hour job and a full-time voiceover career if they don't want to have a social life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, or if they don't want any sleep, right? But yeah, that is something that I am blessed to have at the moment, where I am blessed to be able to do this um, for as long as I can. Now I'm only able to do it because of audiobooks, but yeah, so.
Oh, that's yeah. I can't really top that. That is just that's just wonderful.
Thank you. I wanted to say that because when you're talking about how um, you want people to listen and be inspired,
Yeah.
and that's what me at 15 would have wanted to hear. So, or not me at 15, me at 20. I was what, 20, 21, 22. Now I'm
You young
23.
whippersnappers. I'm
Yeah.
25. Thank you all for being here. Again, if you like what I'm doing, please consider liking and subscribing so I can continue to make more in the future. This is Kraken.